let's move in something that we haven't talked about at all since the carousel started moving, and it's the head coaching carousel. So the carousel's moving, it's grooving. A couple people are on it, a couple people hopped off of it. So starting off, first things first, there have been 4 signings, hirings, whatever you want to call them, 4 hirings for head coach positions. The Titans, the Patriots, the Raiders, and now as of an hour and 15 minutes ago ish, now the Chargers. So let's start off with that one. So along with looking at the signing itself, I want to give a rating system. So rating between F to A plus. How do you rate the signing? Not just the coach itself, but also the coach, the situation they're put in, their outlook. What grade would you give them? So starting off with the Chargers hiring Jim Harbaugh. When you look at this team, the quarterback is far and away the number one selling point there. The Chargers are projected negative $44 million in cap space. Pretty alarming. Expectations, we're talking about them, a lot higher for this team to begin with than a team like the Panthers, the Falcons, the Raiders. So it's a lot higher. Your starting point's a lot higher already. And also you're fighting against a historically poorly ran franchise with an owner that gets in his own goddamn way and gets in everyone else's way on top of that. First things first, what grade do you give this signing? And I'll give my grade as well. What grade do you give this signing? And then go in depth about it.
You just answered your own question, and I'm going to give you the only analysis needed on this. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Simple as that. This is an A+. Not because of the coach, but because Spanos finally decided to spend money. Harbaugh is expensive. His staff is expensive. The stuff that you need to keep him around is expensive. Signing Jim Harbaugh represents to the NFL that the Spanos family has finally decided to take their franchise seriously, has finally decided to spend the money it takes to become a winning franchise, all the way from your head coach, all the way down to your support staff, to your medical staff, stabbing Tyrod Taylor in the lung with the freaking needle. Everything that's been a joke about this franchise for years, Spanos basically just raised a flag that said, you know what? We've turned the corner. We're going to spend the money. We're going to do what it takes to be a legit NFL franchise. And to me, by signaling that, by spending, because Harbaugh is not easy to deal with.
For sure.
Hated him. Jed York hated Jim Harbaugh. He is not easy to deal with. Every single franchise that signs him is at the bottom of the bottom, the low of the low, and he raises them to the top. He's a champion. He's a winner. And the fact that the Spanos family, it would be like Jerry Jones hiring Harbaugh in terms of the way Spanos tries to control this organization. It signals to the NFL that they're going to take a step back, get the hell out of the way, spend all the money needed to be a successful franchise.
You know, it's like bringing in Jim Harbaugh. It's like if you have your own house, right? And then you want to bring in someone else to have a roommate, but instead of just having the roommate, you like hand them over the keys and you like sign them on the lease, and now they own the house and you're there as well. Like you're co-owning it instead.
Yeah, you're no longer renting a room to someone. You moved into the fucking room and gave the rest of the house to the guy that moved in.
Yeah, that's what it feels like with them. Yeah. I'm gonna give this an A-. I'm gonna drop it down. Obviously, the big thing is Jim Harbaugh, but I would agree with everything you said. Outside of, I'm still alarmed with the. I hope that they're taking it serious, because if they're taking it serious, congratulations to them. I think that's great, but I got to see it to believe it.
The efficiency doesn't matter if they're going to spend the money. It only matters if they're not going to spend the money. And they just sent a signal saying that they're swinging for the fences and they're going to spend the money. So I agree with you. If they decide not to spend the money, then this is a joke. But Harbaugh ain't going to stick around for that. I promise you, all of this is already. I guarantee you, Harbaugh's already decided who's on the cut list, who's gone, all this other stuff. And the dude is an all-time. Every single player that's ever played for him loves him, and you're going to get the best out of a Derwin James. You're going to get the best out of a Justin Herbert and all this other stuff. And frankly, shit, man, it must suck to be a Raiders fan this morning. You got Andy Reid, you got Sean Payton, you got Jim Harbaugh, and then you got a linebackers coach as your head coach. So Good luck to Las Vegas.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about them next, because I think the 2020 podcast consensus, it's an A ranking grading between the A- and A+. So we give an A to Jim Harbaugh. But if we're looking at the Raiders signing Antonio Pierce, you know what I've seen this compared to? Because he
NBA.
has the players backing him so much, is I've seen the Antonio Pierce to Dan Campbell comparison a lot, because it's a motivator. It's a guy who changes the locker room culture, the attitudes. The players want to perform the best for him. They did win their 5 of the last 9 games. I think that's what's unique about this signing compared to all the other signings, is he already's worked with this roster. He already knows this roster, and he's already been an interim head coach for this roster. So 5 of the last 9 games under Pierce, they won after Josh McDaniels was fired on Halloween. They were ranked 27th in points allowed per drive, weeks 1 through 8 under McDaniels, and then they ranked second under the same statistic, weeks 9 through 18. They have $36 million in cap. They hold the 13th pick in the draft, which Raiders drafting is, you can roll your eyes a million times at. They got to be some of the worst drafters up there with the Browns in history. So me personally, grading immediately, this is like a C minus, teetering B plus, but a C minus. I don't want to be too negative about it, because they were relatively 5 of the last 9. So you went 5 and 4. You picked up some of the statistics that were down. Players want to play for you. I think that's great. But with everything that was out there, and the coaches that were out there, and the candidates that were out there, and I think they only interviewed 3 guys outside of Pierce. I think they foregoed everything, and none of them were guys like Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Eric Bieniemy, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, Dan Quinn. They didn't interview any of those guys, and it was pretty clear they were just going to go with Antonio Pierce. This is a C minus to me. I don't think this is great. I think Jim Harbaugh sets the tone with an A between the two of us. C minus for me on the Raiders hiring.
Yeah, gut instinct. I would give this a D, but I'm gonna raise it slightly to a C, because the last thing you want to do is hire a coach and then you have your best defensive player force a trade, your best offensive player in Devontae Adams force a trade. Personally, you say they didn't interview this person, they didn't interview that person. I don't know if they could get the interviews for this job. They got no talent. They don't have a quarterback. They're overpaying Jimmy, who's on the bench. It's not a really good position for them.
Yeah.
At the very least, they keep their players happy for the next couple of years. And the one thing I did like is Mark Davis is they hired a real GM today.
Yeah.
What's his face from the Chargers, Telesco. And so
yeah,
he didn't do the interim GM that he had. He got somebody in there that's ran a organization before. So I think that's good, because they kind of need a makeover in the front office. But the Antonio Pierce thing, to me, the one I will push back on the Dan Campbell thing a little bit, because Dan Campbell calls plays. Like his first year calling plays with Jared Goff. Jared Goff had a great season. It's just obviously he made the right decision in giving the play calling duties to his OC, because that dude's a baller and is getting a job. So but
I think it's just
Pierce
like
doesn't call plays.
Yeah, I just think it's the feeling and the signing at first.
Yeah, I mean,
think this is what it feels like.
He's got a very Raider mentality about him, which is great. But I think it's okay to hire a guy that might be the precursor to the guy. There's no expectations for the Raiders. I guarantee you, if we looked at the odds right now, they're going to finish last in their division. That's what's predicted.
Probably.
The Broncos don't even have a quarterback right now, and they're probably.
I was going to say it depends on them.
They just have the better head coach. So, I'm gonna give it a C, because you keep the players happy, and Max Crosby is a talent, Devontae Adams is a talent. So, I don't know. It seems just like very. But who knows? Maybe they called Vrabel, and Vrabel's like, no. Maybe they called Harbaugh or Belichick, and they were just like, no. And personally, I don't think Dan Quinn is all that big of a. I I hope the Seahawks hire him because that doesn't scare me at all. That dude is that there's nobody in the history of the NFL that gets the least amount of blame for his team not winning a Super Bowl than Dan Quinn. Somehow his offensive coordinator gets all the blame, even though it's
Yeah.
his job at any point to hop on the headset. Hey, Kyle, let's run the ball. You know, he doesn't get any blame for that. So and he's
Mhm.
been a defensive coordinator for a long time, and I'm cool with giving him another chance. But the Antonio Pierce thing to me is it doesn't even register in the mindset of like anything. So I think a C is where it lives.
Okay.
If they had hired me, it would have been an F. You know, it's really hard to get an F on a head coaching
Yeah.
hire, but
Right.
you know,
Moving on to the Patriots, Gerard Mayo, um, former Patriot assistant coach with Bill Belichick. From the articles that I was reading, I was very, very surprised to hear people call him Bill Jr. Apparently, when he was even a player, he would be showing up same time as Bill, leaving at the same time as Bill, always at the facility like Bill. Linebackers coach from 2019 to 2023 under Belichick. They have the third pick in the draft, $66 million in cap space, no quarterback, not a lot of great pieces on that team at all. And he's a defensive coach.
is he? Do we know that?
I with just his background and being a linebackers coach and whatnot.
He's got a lot of personality.
He does.
Which is funny that they compare him to Bill. He's like the opposite of Bill.
Right. I'm gonna give.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna give this a C plus. I'm not the biggest fan of this signing.
I'm going to give it a B minus for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
You couldn't let Belichick draft another quarterback because he already failed, so you had to make the change. You already get props for making that change, and they set this up. They've been talking about this dude as the precursor, the heir apparent to Bill Belichick for a couple of years. So obviously, there's an internal belief in him. He's obviously shown what it takes, and so I give you a lot of credit for identifying a plan, following the plan, and seeing the plan out. Especially. This has got like Pittsburgh Steelers written all over it, where this guy's going to be the coach for the next 10 or 15 years, just like Bill Belichick was. He's young. He's got a great personality. And you need something completely different. Every assistant coach of Bill Belichick's that's failed is because he's tried to go be Bill Belichick elsewhere and it hasn't worked. It's like, hey, you're an asshole. You haven't earned that. Bill has. You haven't. He's completely different. And so I give it for something different, for identifying your succession plan, for having an idea, for sticking to it. I give it a B minus just because it's a winning organization. The defense is good. And frankly, if you read some of the stuff that's come out, Bill Belichick tried to move off Mac Jones 2 years ago and they wouldn't let him. So moving forward now, we'll see what they do with the pick. I'm not a big believer in who they got, ranked third, but no. I saw Rich Eisen do an interview today where he talked about could Michael Penix go undrafted, and so I just shut the interview off after he mentioned that because that's not worth any of my time. But dude, come on, like no quarterback in the history of the NFL is ever going to go undrafted again if they have any type of talent because everyone's like, what if he's the next Brock Purdy? Just like every super kind of fat, slow moving physical wide receiver, they're going to be like, oh, is he the next Debo? Let's draft him and make him Debo Samuel. So I'm gonna give it a B minus on that, just because they've set a succession plan and they've followed it through, and I give them props for having all that. And clearly, there's a strong belief in him to not even give anyone else a shot at the job.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I was very much teetering on it. There was the one that I had a lot of trouble putting an actual grade and a rating on. And now finally, the Titans signing, they signed the Cincinnati Bengals offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, who replaces Mike Vrabel after 6 seasons and losing his final 18 of 24 games. Callahan has 14 years of NFL experience. He's been the Bengals offensive coordinator since 2019. Been a big part of Joe Burrow's development and success, even with Jake Browning stepping in this past season when Joe Burrow got hurt too, and being relatively successful for a backup. 4-3 as a backup is pretty damn good. They have Will Levis, so they have a young quarterback. who went 3-6 as a rookie, but you saw flashes of greatness from him. And I think with an offensive coordinator who could do the most with a young quarterback, I think we can maybe see a little bit more out of Will Levis. But Will Levis to me is a big project player. He always has been. He will be until that project is done. But I like this signing. I really do. This was the first one that I kind of went after, and I was kind of seeking and seeing what I would actually grade this. And I would give this a B+, A- signing because of the situation that the Titans are in. I don't think it's the worst situation on the planet. And how good the coach is with the experience. I think with Mike Vrabel getting fired and a lot of Titans fans asking the same question on why did Mike Vrabel get fired, I like Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel is a fan favorite among
Mike
the
Vrabel fired
coaches.
himself.
And yeah, so he's going to have a hard time winning over the fans if he's not extremely successful right off the jump. But I think this is a really good signing in my opinion.
How do you not wait for the playoffs to end to interview the Lions OC?
Yeah,
how do you not interview the Texans OC?
Yeah.
And the 49ers have Brian Griese and Kubiak's son actually that are getting offensive coordinator interviews.
Yeah.
In a bubble, the hiring, I like the hiring. I like going away from Vrabel, going to something complete opposite and grabbing somebody for your young quarterback. I like it. So in my mind, the hiring's a B, but I hate the process. So I'm going to knock it down to a B- because I just don't know how you can confidently say this is our guy without interviewing all the candidates. So I don't have any issue with him. I'm just not exactly sure. The Chargers and Harbaugh thing has been one of the worst known secrets in the NFL for like 3 weeks, right? Gerard has been talked about as the heir apparent to Bill Belichick for a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
The day the season ended, Antonio Pierce, Max Crosby is like, if he's not our head coach, I want out of here, which I don't blame him. He should want out of there anyway. But this is the only one that comes as like, the first big like surprise signing, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just don't obviously we don't know who the GM knows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the Washington Commanders football team, Redskins, with them hiring Adam Peters, he was a big friend to the Golden State Warriors executive that the guy brought in to lead the search, right? So it really wasn't that surprising. That's the NFL is a who business, right? So I don't know who Titans know that led him to that. The process to me might have been slightly flawed with the fact that there's some extremely experienced candidates out there that they didn't even speak to. So, but who knows? I mean, if they go 10-6 or 10-7 next year, and Will Levis looks like a baller, I firmly believe in getting a head coach that can go over to your young play caller and say, hey, this is what we're going to do to get you going. This is what we're going to do to get you going. The only team in the league right now that doesn't really have that is the Texans with DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud. But I imagine, I've obviously listened to him talk. I've never been in a meeting with him, but I imagine that DeMeco is fairly good at pumping a young player up in his own way. So
I'm sure.
Go get yourself a young play caller for your young quarterback. That's, to me, the hire is a good hire. I'm just a little curious about the process and why they wouldn't have waited to talk to a couple other